Hello and welcome to Sam Interviews Series 2, Episode 2 with the amazing Sam Lake. As always, make sure you follow the guest on social media. That is Mr. Sam Lake on both Instagram and Twitter. You can also follow me on social media as well. That is Sam James-Neal on Instagram and I am Sam Rick on Twitter. And also don't forget to follow the podcast on social media. That is Sam James-Neal Pod on both Instagram and Twitter. Thank you for Sam Lake for spending so much time with me. I think we were recording for about 3 hours. I hope you enjoy this episode and have a great day.
Great.
Welcome to Sam Interviews.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having
Hello.
me.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. What is your favourite TV show?
I had a pretty big obsession with The Simpsons when I was younger, and I had like shelves on my bedroom wall that had like every figurine, every VHS, every DVD, every comic, every annual, everything that they ever made. I had somewhere. I had a Simpsons water cooler at one point.
I love
Got
it.
moldy very quickly.
I respect that so much. I love it.
The mold was
I love
also
that.
Simpsons branded as well.
Okay. Um, Surprisingly, despite that being a really popular TV show, no one's really ever said The Simpsons to that question. And I'm here for it. I love it.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, I can't say I watch it a ton right now, but it's the most obsessed I've ever been with a TV show.
Yeah,
Hmm.
fair enough. It's a really good show.
It is. People say it's gotten less good in recent times, but I think peaks and troughs.
Similar to TV shows. There we go.
Hmm.
What is your favorite movie?
Uh, of recent times, probably Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I haven't heard of it.
No, it's the one with Michelle Yeoh in, and it's like a multiverse film. She runs a laundrette with her family, and her family is like dysfunctional, and then she discovers about the multiverse, and like it's so good. It's such a good film. And I prefer it to the Marvel films that are also about the multiverse. I guess the multiverse is just very popular right now. When I was younger, my favorite film was Mrs. Doubtfire.
Good film.
Good film, very quotable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Haven't watched it in a while though, so can't give too many opinions on it. But remember it being good.
good. That's maybe a
Um,
controversial enough opinion to express.
the thing is, like, people like when I ask that question, people always give me movies that like I haven't watched, but that's the thing, like I don't watch good movies. I don't watch good movies.
I like a comfort watch. Like there's a film that
Yes.
has Queen Latifah in it called Last Holiday. It's not like the best film ever made, but it's just a very satisfying watch. So like I
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
recommend it as like, oh, if you want to watch a good film, I wouldn't recommend that one. I was like, if you want to watch a film that makes you feel a particular way, you should watch this one.
Yeah. I think that it explains my movies.
Yeah,
I think that explains it. I mean, I also like quite a bit of Adam Sandler films, so
sure. Like a
it's
Happy
quite it's
Madison or
questionable.
a
More like, have you ever seen The Wedding Singer?
yes, I have.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I don't really tend to lean towards like the Billy Madison stuff. Like I'm not a big fan of that.
Not the classics.
Yeah.
You're a new age Sandler fan.
Well, in a way, I just don't like the way he makes fun of certain groups of people. I try to stay away
Sure.
from that. I try and stay
Ve-
away from that.
a lot of films in the 90s rife with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what is your favorite book?
I don't read a lot. Um,
Fair enough.
I well, a book I've read multiple times was the autobiography of Tina Fey, and it's called Bossy Pants. And I quite liked it. But I probably just read that so many times because I'm a fan of hers. So I don't know. I don't like reading books that are fiction. I don't think. I
This
did,
makes sense.
yeah. It takes me too long to get through them because I spend too long picturing what everything might look like in my head. And then
Yeah.
it means it takes me like, I don't know, a month to get through one chapter. And I'm like, I'll just watch the film.
Find sometimes that like films are better than TV show.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. It's just it's just an easier way to consume, isn't it?
It is.
Hmm.
My favorite book is a biography, and it's Rob Beckett's. Have you read it?
I haven't. No, is it good?
It's so good. It's so good. It's kind of what inspired this TV show. Not TV show, podcast. Oh my God.
No, you're aiming high. You got big
Yeah.
ambitions.
It's what inspired this whole podcast because like it made me want to know about comedians' lives and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and it was really powerful. I recommend it to everyone.
I might
Um,
give it a read.
yes, do it. It was also the book that got me into reading. Like before I started like read that book, I didn't really like reading like at all, and it made me really want to read
Mm.
books. So I
Oh,
really
that's
recommend it.
Rob Beckett's done a good job there then.
But no, fair enough, you don't read books. I used to hate books. I used to hate like I could not read.
I think there's also an
Um,
attitude that comes with books. Some people are so into books, but like maybe too much.
Definitely not
You're
me.
you're the problem. I'm talking about you. I'm subtweeting you to your face.
Okay. Um, no, I think it's I don't read that much. It looks like I do, but I don't.
We've all got books for display, haven't we?
Yes, they are. They really are. It makes me look smart.
It does. It does. That's
Therefore, I
completely
put them in.
disproven now, but
Yeah. What is your favorite genre of music?
this is good because this is just after Spotify Unwrapped, which I used to accidentally call Spotify Bareback, which is not correct. Spotify Unwrapped told me that it's all pop and then it's different genres of pop. So like pop, dance pop, Latin pop. I think I had a big Latin pop moment this year. And then the
Fair
rest
enough.
is usually like Eurovision. Most of the songs that I listen to during the year are songs from either that year's Eurovision or the year before. And I've got like a playlist where I keep like my favorite ones. So I'm a big Eurovision old nut.
Hate me for that. You're gonna hate me for this. I'm
Go on,
like
say what you have to say.
I've never watched it.
We're done. You have to watch it. You've got to experience it once.
My friend wanted to have a party, like a Eurovision party, where we all
Yep,
dressed up like a country and like watched
lovely.
Eurovision together.
That's a
Um,
lovely thing to do.
but then COVID was like, nah, that's not happening.
Yeah. There was a dark year when COVID stopped Eurovision from happening. I don't think I left the bed for days. But no, you should definitely watch it. You have to watch it like live though. That's the one thing I'll say is that I can't go back and watch a Eurovision like that's already happened. You need the experience and the sensation of seeing the votes and the scores come in and then things maybe going wrong on stage and stuff. You can't beat live.
I will. When's it normally on? That just shows how much I don't know about it. When is it normally on?
It's on May 10th. No, it's the first or second week of May.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will watch it live next year.
Okay, good.
I will watch it.
I
Um,
feel like I've bullied you now.
how long is I swear it's normally like 5 hours or something though.
Like four and a half.
Okay.
They do run a very tight schedule, but like I think it's when the votes come in and then it's all a bit like I don't know. Yeah, they're only allowed to go on for so long, as far as I'm
Yeah.
aware. But yeah, 4 to 4.5 hours. You make an evening of it. You bring some nibbles. You have a little tipple.
Actually sounds fun now. You've made it sound fun.
You bring a nibble and a tipple into something, and then anything is interesting.
Yeah. I will watch it next year. You have made
Okay,
it
good.
sound very, very kind of interesting.
Please report back on what your experience was like.
Okay, I will. What is your favorite question that you have ever asked someone or have been asked?
Wow. Uh, I assume excluding that one because that's a very juicy old question, isn't it? My favorite question I've ever been asked. I think, hmm, there was like a podcast I did maybe 2 years ago, and it was from just some nice young boys off TikTok, which that sounds ominous. I did a gig an online gig that they watched, and they wanted, "Will you please do our podcast?" And I think they asked me like a really weird question considering how young they were. They asked me how I felt about cancel culture in comedy. And I thought that was such an interesting thing to come from because I think they were like 16. It was sort of like a school project, I think they were doing a podcast for. And they asked me what cancel culture was like in comedy and if I was worried about it. And I just thought that was an interesting question purely because I think it's fascinating that young people think that, or at least these young people thought like that's like a thing that's on our minds like all of the time. Um, yeah, maybe that's not a particularly like entertaining or funny one. It's more just like interesting.
That
Um,
is interesting.
yeah, I think so. I can't really remember what I said at the time. But like yeah, it was just interesting. It was like, oh, okay, this generation is aware of this term, but do they understand like the history of it and how it's sort of been co-opted, and um do they only see cancel culture from this viewpoint of like, very famous comedians like Ricky Gervais or people like that being able to mock the trans community, for example? Is that all they think cancel culture is? So I thought just that was quite interesting.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting you to say that. And
I didn't I don't get interviewed that often. So the only other jobs that I could think about were like things that happened in like job interviews for things that aren't comedy and weren't super interesting. Like I wouldn't say like, how would you structure this SQL database? I don't think that's like a super interesting question.
yeah. A lot of people have asked me to remove that question.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because apparently it can confuse people and make people like stop.
I can see why. I think it's just like one of those ones where you have to think about every question you've ever been asked and go like, okay, which one was the best one? And it's funny because like that question is like the question itself that you asked me was a good question. So, but it seems silly to just go like, oh, well, that one next.
No one's ever wanted to answer that question with the question that question, if that makes sense. Like no one's ever wanted to do that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
This next question, people do ask me. This is a question that everyone hates. So let me know what you think
Okay.
about it. Have you read anything interesting recently? But when I say read, not like you can hear it, be told it, like just anything interesting that you know.
Yes. I read an article. So I don't know why I've taken an interest in not NFTs and crypto, but the failure of NFTs and crypto. And I love reading the stories about how like people blew loads of money on it and then the market crashed. And then I'm just like, no, 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 no. I mean, yes, give me the story. And I'm particularly interested in how NFTs and crypto factor into video games. And I think I read this because there's the video game awards coming up soon, and somebody posed the question of NFT video games. So like games where like you can buy NFTs in games, so it's like a unique item or something. So like if you're playing Fortnite, you could buy a helmet that only you technically own because you have the NFT for it. And but all of the NFT and the crypto games are all scams, and nobody really likes them. Um, but like huge studios are still throwing loads of money behind them because they think they're going to be the future, even though everyone's very resistant to it. And I love reading the story. So this was a story about how it was a racing game, and in this game, the NFTs were the cars that you would drive. So you would buy the NFT, which would then give you the car, and you're the only one who gets to play the game with that car, and it comes with like all of its stats and customizations and what have you. And it was this game where the developers had signed a deal with Formula One so they could put Formula One cars into the game. So then if you bought the NFT for that, like, oh, that's super valuable. You've got like, I don't know, Lewis Hamilton's car or something. But so people bought NFTs. And at the time, the people who bought the NFTs, it was the most expensive NFT that's ever been bought in a video game. It was like $250,000 or something. And then the developers had the license for the Formula One thing taken away because Formula One were like, oh, we're only going to give it to you for like 1 or 2 years. So now that we're taking it away, you can't have our cars in your game anymore. But they'd already made the NFTs. So now the car's completely vanished and the person who bought it can't use it anymore. So then the company was just like, oh, well, we'll just give you other cars of equal value to that NFT, but then they get to decide how valuable the other cars are. So the person was just like, I feel like I've been completely ripped off. And I was just like, well, of course you did. NFTs are a huge scam all of the time. So I just read it. I was just like, mm-hmm. And it's just like one of those ones where you're like, you don't really feel any sympathy for anyone involved because you all did this because you want to make more money. So that was something recently that I read that was interesting.
Like a whole nother level of interesting. Um, like that's a lot of money to spend, and then for them to be like, nah, nope.
Nah. It's like it is always referred to as like a Ponzi scheme or something because the only people who make money out of crypto and NFTs are the people who had enough money to invest like right at its inception. And the only people who keep NFTs and cryptos going are people who already have lots of money and they're trying to convince people with less money that they should invest because that's how they get more money. Like, don't get me started on like Logan Paul or Jake Paul, whichever one of the Pauls who bought like the rare Pokemon card and then turned the Pokemon card into an NFT so that he could then split it up into shares. So like the thing is worth $5 million. So he made it into 5 million shares and then said people can buy shares in the card so we all own it together. But what he doesn't tell you is that he keeps half of the shares for himself. So he always will own the card physically. And he's now got like a bunch of strangers to pay for the other half of it. It's mental. Like these are all scams, and I just really love talking about it because I just find it fascinating that people fall for this stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know about the poll thing.
I mean, there's enough already besides NFTs to think that they're not the best people, but that was something I was like, oh, now you're being problematic in the new age of crypto. At least you're on brand.
This might be not great to say, but I've never really forgiven the polls. So like,
You're allowed to not forgive them.
yeah.
I haven't forgiven them for anything.
So do you know like when everything kind of happened with Logan?
Logan is the Japanese forest one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So do you remember when that
hmm
happened?
Yeah, and he makes the
Um,
apology video and it's like I made a huge error in judgment and then I recorded that error in judgment and then I uploaded that error in judgment to YouTube and I didn't think at any point to not do that. Yes.
yeah. So the person I was dating at the time was like, you need to like Logan Paul, watch Logan Paul. And like I watched like one video
Mm,
and really I couldn't get into it. Like I did not want to.
right.
And then he released that video and it was kind of like it's awful. It's really truly like disgusting. Like you should not have done that. But
Yeah.
wasn't surprising. I would like expected him to do something that big. Like because everyone was supporting what he was doing and how disrespectful he was being to people
Yeah.
that just like something on that level would have happened anyway. And it's not right. It doesn't make it right. It just I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
Um and then he made the video, like the apology video, and it was kind of just like I can't you don't film that, edit it, post it, and
Yeah.
all while that time thinking it's still a good idea. Like the only reason you're upset is because other people are upset. You don't see the error in what you did. You're just upset because people have gone against you.
Yeah. I love all of the apology videos of all of the influencers who like got caught saying something, just like unquestionably racist or problematic. And then when people go like, "Hey, we didn't like that you said that," then you see like the tearful apology video. There's one where it's like a girl who's like trying to make it sound like she's so upset that she can't talk properly. And she's like,
I think I know what you're talking about.
like, yeah, I can't remember her name, but yeah, I loved apology video culture was like quite prevalent then, and I quite enjoyed it. Sometimes I didn't even know what the scandal was. I would just watch the apology video and be like, okay, this is entertainment. I would pay for a Netflix subscription that was just apology videos.
So, I think I
Yeah.
I think I would.
Yeah. Yeah. You just search for the kind of scandal that you want an apology for, and then like whatever comes up, comes up.
The thing is, some apology videos are good. Some are actually done really well, and it depends on the level of what they've done as well. But most of
Yeah.
them are like they've got like like a massive house behind them. They've got the most expensive car outside the window you can
Yeah.
see, and they're kind of crying, be like, "I'm sorry if you were offended by this," and it's like, yeah, no, that's not how you apologize. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And often like the good apology videos come from the people who don't need to be told they did something wrong, or in the grand
Yes,
scheme
yeah,
of
yeah,
things didn't do something that was like so awful, like compared to the other apologies. They're apologizing for something like relatively insignificant. So it's all on a scale, isn't it? I just think I don't know. But circling back to the polls, yeah, I have no time for them. I don't know. But they're like wrestlers now. I think
yeah.
they don't make a video or whatever. They don't have their hype house or whatever it's called. All the best to them. Whatever.
Yeah. Um, I know that like Jake is trying to call out KSI to fight, and it's just like you're calling him out because you want attention, because people have stopped paying attention to you, and people are paying attention to him. So therefore, you're calling him out, try and get people
Yeah.
back.
It's so weird though that they've gone into like professional like fighting, like UFC or wrestling or boxing, because now they do it. Other smaller, relatively smaller influencers do it as well. And I think like big like boxers who've like trained their whole lives to be boxers and make it to that kind of stage are kind of like, who are these people who like what they make a bunch of TikToks and then get angry at each other, and now millions of people are paying to come and watch them fight each other? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Influencers have a way of just worming their way into whatever industry they would like to be in, and then when it stops working for them, they just move on to something else.
There's a whole like TikTok and YouTuber boxing match at one point, which
Yeah.
just was it was so obvious that they were kind of money instead of.
Yes.
And it must be so upsetting to people that like have been spending their whole life to get to that point, and
Hmm.
then just seeing people kind of make a mockery of it.
Yeah. That I think that's what it is. Yeah.
It's not great. It's not good.
No.
Like it annoys me in a way. Like I'm not a fan of wrestling. Like I don't or boxing. Like I'm not really someone that watches it.
No, me either.
But
No.
it does annoy me that people can kind of make a TikTok and then act like they know everything.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And it's obviously not just boxing or wrestling. They go into so many things, and it's just
Yeah.
because they've they have worked to get like a following going, and then lots of different industries and companies will look at that following and go like, well, how can we use that? And then that's what gives them the entry into all these different things.
It's upsetting. I don't like
Mm.
it. I'd appreciate it to stop.
Yes, here, here.
Um, yeah, it's not great. Um, the next question is completely different, completely on a different note.
Okay.
Um, apart from stand-up and comedy and all that, do you have any other hobbies?
Yes. Let me just think of them now. I we can see from my background, so that is a little map of Scotland, but done in the style of Super Mario 2, like the world map view. So I've
Yeah,
always
yeah,
been
yeah.
super into video games. And then, well, I mean, I guess I can just go off the other stuff up there. I'm big into fiber supplements. Big fan of them. That is actually, we were talking about books earlier. That's Tom Allen's autobiography. I'm reading my way through that. I love Tom Allen.
I don't
Um
know. Very
uh
good.
what what else do I do? It's so strange because normally I'm being asked by people at like my day job, what do you do for a hobby? And then I tell them comedy. But that doesn't make sense here. Um, I do go to the gym. I'm not good at the gym, but I go to the gym a lot. I find it quite. I don't know. I don't think I enjoy it, but I enjoy it after I've done it, if that makes sense. So then that makes me want to do it more. Um, and I used to do a lot of aerial circus stuff, like aerial hoop, but I haven't done that in a while. But yeah, anything that's like, I don't know, slightly physical, but also not so physical that I can't do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I want to get back into going to the gym because I'm on the waiting list to start transitioning. Um,
Right.
and they sent me a letter today, like to kind of like an application type form.
Right.
Um, and one of the things that they mentioned was weight, and I was like, okay, cool. That's funky and fresh. That's nice. Um, and then it kind of made me want to go back to the gym and like sort stuff out while I'm waiting because it's a long waiting. It's so long you
Right.
have to wait. Um, but the thing is, every time I go to the gym, like I feel like I'm being judged by people.
I know it's I know plenty of people who are like that, and I was like that when I started going to gym. I think it's partly also because I'm now 31, and I think once you get to a certain age, you stop. If you are at a place to do a specific thing, like going to the gym, you're there to have an exercise, to have an exercise, to do a workout. You kind of just like go like, okay, I'm just going to exercise. I don't have time to worry about what other people are thinking or doing. But the gym is it can be a particularly toxic place. And it's always full of, I don't know. I was there yesterday and there were so many guys in there who all looked exactly the same, like same body, same physique, doing the same exercises. They're in like a little gang that was taking up half the gym. They all had the same haircut because I assume you get like a deal if you buy in bulk. And then like it was it's they didn't do anything that was particularly obstructive, but you do just look at a group like that and go, oh, I obviously so clearly don't fit into that. Then even if I'm just walking over to a weight rack to get like a dumbbell, I have to walk through all of these people, and you can't help but think like, are they all just looking at me like you feel like you're trying to, I don't know, what's the way you feel like you're sort of like in disguise and hoping nobody spots you, and it's a really weird thing. And also people at the gym are so like not they're so oblivious to like their own personal space. Because when I'm on a bit of equipment or something, I like to just like be to myself, and then once I'm done with it, anyone can use it. But you always get people coming over and being like, do you mind if we like swap sets, or like if we alternate? And I'd be like, I want to say like I'd really prefer not to, just for like a personal thing, a hygiene thing. Can you just wait until I'm done? I would wait until you're done with something before I go over and use it. Like you just have your time with it. I don't know. They're there for their gains, and then like any other kind of like social anxiety or anything that would prevent them from getting them just goes out of the window. And I just don't know if I'll ever be that person. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like a place that you can easily feel comfortable unless you've already been there for like ages and ages, and you already have sort of like a gym body. It's yeah, which is a shame because
The
the gym should
gym,
be for everybody.
it should. The gym that I used to go to literally had like award people for like weights and stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, like people that are winning awards because how much they could like deadlift and stuff,
right. Yeah, yeah.
which is not great when you're like already uncomfortable.
And I don't like I don't know how you'd feel about this, but if I go to the gym and I've got like my little like plan of like, okay, I'm going to do this today, I'll start doing stuff. And then once or twice, I'll be struggling with something and someone will offer advice. And although I know they're just trying to be nice, I always feel, because it's always a man who does this, I always feel like, but I think you're just offering advice because then it makes you feel like you're more of like an alpha here, like this is unsolicited advice that I didn't ask for. And it's fine. Like it doesn't affect me so much because I am like, I'm a cis man, they're cis men who come my way. But like I see a lot on TikTok of women who go to the gym or non-binary people who go to the gym and don't fit in with them. If those guys will come over and like they'll correct them on stuff that they don't need to be corrected on, they'll give them advice about stuff that they didn't ask for, they'll suggest things that actually they shouldn't be doing, and it's just so that these guys can continue to feel like this space is like their dominion. And I'm just like, ugh, ugh.
The thing is, I think it's so different because I sometimes go to the gym with like a group. There's like
Yeah, if you,
three of
yeah,
us type of thing. And it's so different between like a stranger coming up and being like, you could do this, instead of like one of your people in your group being like, you're doing this,
yeah,
but like you could change it in this way slightly and it'd be easier for you.
exactly, because you already trust that person, so if they offer you advice, you know it's not coming from any like weird place, they're
Yeah.
your friend, right? So yeah, that's so true. Anytime I've gone to the gym with friends, that's always been like much easier. And then because you're both sort of like, oh, I'm slightly uncomfortable, but because you're there together, you're kind of like, it doesn't matter. I've got my friend here.
Anyway, moving on to the actual like comedy questions.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
what was your life like before stand-up?
Oh, it's a very fun way of phrasing that question. I used to work in, well, I still do. I had a job as a software engineer, and I was quite content doing that. I'm originally from Cornwall, and I'd always wanted to live in a big city, so I tried to forge a path for myself that made me end up in London. Because I was just like, I've got to be in London. That's where everything cool happens. And I started doing my job and was quite happy with that for like a year or two. And then at some point, I'm trying to remember exactly how it came about. Um, I went on a really weird, awkward, what I thought was date. And then it turned out to not really be a date, but that's the story for another time. I went on a really weird date to Soho Theatre in London. And this was back before the days of GDPR. And they could just take your email address and like a blood sample or whatever and send you whatever they liked. And they sent out a newsletter and I read it, and it said that they were doing courses for people who were thinking about doing comedy. And I ended up just sort of like emailing and being like, hey, what does this like evolve? I think I might like to do it. And this was like before like the course is like actually I think quite competitive now. I did it when they would let any old muggins in. But so I ended up doing that. And then that's how I ended up just getting really into comedy. But before then, I had never done anything like it. Like I quite contently worked my job, and that was it. And I thought like, right, okay, well, this will be like my future, whatever my future is, it will be somewhere within like this kind of job. And then, and I also was not like a very confident person or public speaker. So I wouldn't like to do presentations or anything like that. I used to do a thing where I wouldn't breathe when I spoke in public. So like I would know what to say, but then I would just keep saying it and I wouldn't stop to take breaths in between sentences. Um, which meant that by the end of the presentation, my face was so red to the point where one of my managers said, like, hey, have you had some kind of allergic reaction to something in the room? Because you don't look well. Um, and I was just like, oh God, this is going to be like a problem for me for like the rest of my life. I'll never get over being uncomfortable in front of people. And then I think when I started doing stand up, I realized, oh, I'm not confident talking about things that like somebody else has told me to talk about or things that I haven't put together myself. So it's very strange, but yeah. So before comedy, I wasn't super confident about anything. I was quite shy, and I get like introverted, I guess is the word. And I still am to a degree, but yeah. So yeah, very different person before I got on a stage.
But like the amount of people that have like said to me before stand up they were really nervous and very like introverted and
Yeah,
didn't talk to many people, didn't like doing public speaking and stuff. It's really surprising how many people have said that because it's like
it's very
stand up,
common.
that's your job. Like you have it's really common, but like you have
Yeah,
to stand up in front of a bunch of people. And the weird thing is, like like I mentioned, I've only have like a few friends that like are very, very close. And I've always
mm,
kind of struggled to make friends and just because I like having the confidence to go and talk to someone is like really scary.
right. Yeah,
Um and I've always like I hated public speaking and all that lot. And then I got on stage, got my first laugh, and like I was fine.
that's exactly it. Yeah, once you get the first laugh, it's just like you that I think because like they're laughing, you know you're not supposed to talk. So then you take that moment to breathe, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've just relaxed on this stage, haven't I? And then it doesn't seem so scary anymore. You're just in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's actually really like weird. Not weird, I think weird's the wrong bit, but like interesting that
Mm,
majority of the comedians were really like shy and couldn't do public speaking.
yeah.
Um, and then you get like see them on stage and they're like so confident. Like I was watching your stand up before like doing this recording and like you are so confident on stage. You are incredibly confident on stage. And it's like really impressive to like know that you're not good at public speaking, like weren't good at public speaking. It's
Mm.
really impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say it did also take like lots of practice and everything, but um there's something that changes when it's like I guess you've decided that you want to go on stage and talk to people rather than I guess like if you have to do it at your job or at school or at uni or something where someone has told you that you have to go and do this presentation, then you don't feel as confident. But because it's stand up and you decide what you say and what you do and how you say it, you're in control of everything. There's just like a weird, I don't know, sense of comfort that comes from that sort of sidesteps any public speaking fears, I think.
What year did you start comedy?
2015, I
That's a while
think.
ago. That's a while ago.
Yeah. Well, I've got friends who I started comedy with, and we were just hanging out only like a couple of weekends ago. And one of them was like, it's been 7 years that we not only became friends, that we've all been doing comedy. And I was kind of like, that doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like I've been doing it for 7 years. And also, like, a lot of people don't count 2020 because of how little there was going on. So really, it's like 6 years. But yeah, my first gig was in 2015.
I mean, I think I started in 2020 because I was doing like online gigs and stuff.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. The
so I
Zooms.
count the year. I count the year. And also it's not like you just stopped doing comedy. Like you were probably writing and working on stuff and like even
Yeah,
if you weren't
that's
writing
true.
jokes, like you got jokes from that.
Yeah. I did the online gigs as well, but it was
Yeah.
like it was a good time to just sit down and like write longer form stuff like my show or scripts, or I made a few sketches in my house, but honestly, I couldn't look at myself after I posted them. I was like, what are you doing? Stop it. So yeah, there was other stuff that you could do, like, sort of like a pivot almost away from live onto other stuff that could be done in the safety of your own home. Yeah.
Um, it's quite upsetting because you'll get like people call them new comedians, but in
Hmm.
reality, they would have been working for like 20 years to get on one panel show. Like, it takes a
Yes,
while.
it does. Yeah. I think when I started the story, I was told it was about John Bishop, because everyone was like, he was like an overnight success. And then a lot of people didn't know that he'd been gigging live for the best part of 20 years before he got a break. Um, but also apparently he also had like quite a well-paid job in some industry, like a really good job, like a very good job. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I don't know why I've like narrowed my eyes as well to be like, oh, here's some tea about John Bishop. I'm sure he's lovely. But yeah, it's it, I guess it's like when more people become aware of you. I don't know.
Like, you will get some that are like in like 3 years, like everyone, like they're well known. Not like
Yeah,
known, but like they kind of have a quick rise in
a
popularity.
quick rise. Yeah. Yeah, but even then, sometimes like I've got loads of. I think there's people within comedy that we all know and go like, "Oh my god, they're incredible! They're at the top of the game." But like to the public, they're not as well known. They're sort of like a comedian's comedian.
What made you first start comedy?
Spite. There was again, there was a guy I used to date who essentially said that he was funnier than me, and I've just made it a so far 7 year long mission to prove him wrong.
I love that so I love it. I love it. I actually
it's
love
still
it so much.
it was obviously like an ambition before that as well, but I would say that was like the impetus where I was like, you're not funny though, and I've got to prove it somehow. I was kind of like, I can't really like back myself up unless I actually like make a commitment to try and do something where I can prove that I'm funny. So that's sort of how I got into it.
I think that's so cool. I think that's so cool. I love it. I love it so much. Thing is, it's really bad. I started stand up because I used to hate stand up, like hate it. Like refuse to
Oh
watch it,
right,
get
okay,
complain about every time it was on. Like I used to like genuinely go out my way to hate it.
right.
Like
What
I was the
changed?
one. The reason I hated stand up was because my dad liked it, and I was like, no, there's no reason for me to like the same things as my
Okay.
dad. I'm not doing it. No.
Yeah.
Um, and then one day I actually sat down with him and went, you know what? Today is the day we're gonna watch Mock the Week, and I'm not just gonna sit here and act like I don't like it. I'm actually going to give it a try.
Right.
And then I fell in love. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with comedy.
Hmm.
Um, to the point I'm actually doing comedy now, so quite a big
Great.
change.
Yeah.
But like I hated stand up so much. I remember my parents used to try to put it on, and I was like, nope. And then like every single thing that I found like slightly funny, and like I would smile, trying to like hide the laugh. I'd be like, no, this isn't funny. I don't get how you could like this. I don't like it. Um, but then like I felt like it went from me hating it to me going to stand-up shows a large amount of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
so interesting. I've never heard of anyone getting into comedy from a place of not liking it. Everyone I've known
yeah.
has always like had like a big interest in it long before they started thinking about doing it themselves. That's really weird. In a good
Um,
way.
I think it was literally just like the teenage thing where it was like, I'm not gonna like the same things as my parents. I probably
Yeah,
would
yeah,
have
yeah.
liked it if I didn't, because like since a young age, I've loved shows like Miranda, and like my dad
Yeah.
decided to show me The Inbetweeners when I was in like the last year of primary school. Um, so my dad tried to show me Inbetweeners when I was 12, 11, 12. Because he was like, this will get you ready for the boys at high school. This will introduce you to what boys are like in high school. Decided to show me that. So like I've always liked comedy shows.
Yeah. But stand up was
Um,
different.
yeah, I hated stand up, and I didn't like panel shows either. But I love panel shows now.
It's kind of like olives. They always say you don't like olives when you're younger and you have to grow into it.
I love olives so much. I love olives are so nice.
I can't stand them.
Um, you can't stand fair enough. Um, I don't have them regularly, but if I'm like giving them, like I will eat. Like they're not bad. I like them, but
Okay,
like it wouldn't go my way to like go and buy a bunch of olives.
sure.
Um, do you remember your first show?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What was it like? What happened?
It was so because I started doing stand up through a course at Soho Theatre. My first gig was there, and it was like
Okay.
the end of course showcase to I think it was probably mostly friends and family, but then they can't all have been friends and family because there were so many people there. So it was a very like charmed first gig because like it's in such a nice venue to a very nice crowd. And then I'm pretty sure the gig I did after that was at like an open mic in Stockwell, and it was not as nice. Not bad, just not as nice. And I was like, oh, okay, I think this is more of what to expect if I keep doing this. But I remember I was on last of our group. I think there was like maybe 15 of us, and we each got 3 minutes on stage. Very few people actually did 3 minutes. We all pretty much ran over. We weren't supposed to. And I think I remember not being nervous but excited, and I remember leaving stage being like, yeah, this is going to ruin my whole life now because I'll just want to keep doing this. And I think um so they recorded the gig, and we have the recording still exist. So me and the other people who did that course, we were on a train back from a gig that we were doing from like Oxford, and they pulled out the video of all of our first gigs, and I watched mine back and I was like, this is okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. We're making jokes about that, are we? There was so much where I was like, oh, I couldn't imagine doing jokes like that now. And then there were some jokes I I don't know. It was just very strange to see the kind of at the time I probably thought I was God's gift to comedy, as I'm sure lots of people do. And then watching it back, the industry has certainly humbled me. Because I look back at it now and I go like, what on earth were you doing? Um, I yeah, that was my first gig, and I remember, and it was so nice because it was like the exact setup you'd want for stand up. It was like a nice sort of like raised stage, cabaret seating, red curtains in the background. You felt like you were in a proper club. It was just very nice, and yeah. And then I got very drunk after the gig, uh, and I do remember um randomly because it was in Soho Theatre Bar where there tends to be like a lot of comedians or people just hanging out. We're all hanging out in the bar afterwards, and Stephen K. Amos came up to some of us and saw because he had seen our show, and then was like, "You were all very funny," and he said to me as well, "You were very funny. Quite liked you on stage." And I was like, at the time, I was like, "Oh my god, Stephen K. Amos off the telly." And now I go, "Oh, Stephen K. Amos." But at the time, I was like, "Oh wow, celebrities think I'm funny. That's nice." Um, I didn't know at the time, is what I'll say. But yeah, it was. I think I couldn't have had like a nicer first gig in terms of stand up. It was just so nice. And I think if I don't know, I always wonder if I'd gone straight to like an open mic, just any of the open mics in London where you can just put your name on and then you'll get called up onto stage. I do wonder if I had taken that set and gone to a open mic first, would I have still been as enthusiastic about pursuing comedy? Because it was just such a nice setup. And I wonder if I'd gone somewhere a bit rougher, would I still be like, oh yeah, comedy is for me? Would I have still had that magical feeling when I left the stage that like, yeah, I want to keep doing this? So I don't know, but it was a lovely time. I had a lovely first gig.
So my first open mic, I brought my dad, and my dad was more nervous than I was because my dad was kind of like, my dad's always been very honest with me. He's never wanted to lie to
Yeah.
me. If he doesn't like something, he will just be like, I don't like it. I don't like, that was not funny. Which I appreciate because it means if I ever like want to get an opinion, like he will just tell me.
Yeah.
So he was more nervous than I was because he was like, if this goes badly, then I'm just gonna have to say it goes badly. Like I'm gonna have to just be honest.
Yeah.
But like he went like red with laughter at one point. He was like the loudest person laughing in that place, which was like really
Aww.
validating. But yeah, no, my first open mic was it was something else. It started at 7 and I went up at 9. That just shows you how many people were on. It was all
Oh
5 minute
yeah.
spots. Like it was I did 5 minutes and they're very strict on time, like obviously.
They have to be.
But
Yeah.
it was really good. Um Apart from like some very drunk and high people kind of thinking that they're the best in the room.
Okay, so other acts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It was good.
Good. Yeah. That's so cool that you brought your dad.
There was loads of jokes about it as well because like I was like no one else is going to bring their dad to an open mic.
No.
Like, do you have any idols within comedy or just in like within your life?
Within comedy, yes. I would say Bill Bailey, even though I don't do any musical comedy. I just really liked him. I had all of his DVDs. I watched his stand-up shows like on repeat for
Yeah.
years. He did a gig where I grew up in Cornwall. He did a gig near where we lived, and he changed the place in one of his songs to be the name of my hometown. And
I
we were
love
all
it.
just like, "Oh my god, he said it!" So love him. I really like people like Tom Allen and Joe Lycett. I'm a big fan of Josie Long. And I really like Dawn French as well. I like French and Saunders, but maybe I like Dawn French slightly more because she follows me on Twitter.
Fair enough. Um, I think they're really, really good people to admire. They are really, really good people, like in
I
stand
think
up.
so. Eclectic as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like I want to say controversial because of who wrote it. Um, I really like Bill Bailey in
Black
Black
Books.
Books. Yeah.
I know the old Linen debacle. I know it's a shame, but I do think that show is the writing is very good, but also I think that's a real like performer driven show.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
I think like Tamsin Greig, Dylan Moran, Bill Bailey, like they add so much to the characters. It's always a tricky thing when like something that you love to watch, then you discover the person who had a big hand in creating it maybe not the best person.
Yeah.
Which makes things tricky. I don't know. It's the whole separating art from the artist thing, and I don't know.
The thing is, I also really, really like. Oh my God, what's the other one? Why is the other one? The IT Crowd.
Yeah, I know they are really good. Well, most of the episodes. I think what happens is then you learn something about the person who came up with the ideas for the episodes. Then you rewatch the episodes through a slightly different lens, and then you're like,
Yeah.
now I don't know if I enjoy this as much. Um, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's very difficult because Father Ted as well, and it's not just him. There's other shows like Motherland. I think he was involved with quite heavily in the first couple of series, and then he sort of was asked to take a step back.
It really sucks because a large amount of the TV shows that he's written are like some of my favorite. Like when my anxiety's bad, like I love watching Black Box, and then you learn it's him, and kind of
Yeah,
it goes bad.
it goes bad. Yeah, I don't know. We didn't know, did we?
No. And then you kind of look back on the IT crowd, and there's like a few very like transphobic and homophobic moments, and it's kind of
Yeah,
just like, okay.
yeah, I know. It's with like it's all with hindsight that you go back and watch that stuff and they go like, oh, I think because you kind of ask yourself, oh, how come we're only hearing about this now? Surely there must have been
Yeah.
clues if somebody has that kind of opinion. And you go back and watch, it's like, oh, maybe there was hints there, but they did so much other good work that you're kind of like, oh, well, I wouldn't have noticed that. I kind of just like let that slide by.
But it sucks. But like the people that you idolize are really, really good. Really, really good.
I think so,
Um,
yeah.
I think that like Joe Lycett is absolutely amazing. The
The
stuff that Joe Lycett is doing.
have you seen the latest show?
Which one?
The one that he's touring now or has just
No, I
finished
haven't.
touring?
I haven't seen it.
You have to. Me and my husband went to go see it. I can't remember when, but we saw it here in Edinburgh, and it was just like, not only was it funny, like by the end of it, you're just kind of like, it's a proper like, how did he do that kind of show? And I know a bunch of other comedians who went, and we're all just kind of like, how do you do that? That's like, it was like one of those shows that you watch and go like, I don't think I'll ever be able to make a show like that myself. Like you're just in awe of it. I thought it was great.
My boyfriend went to go see it and said it was really, really good. Like
Mm.
it was like the best stand-up shows he ever seen. Um, I was meant to go to that one, but I got caught up doing something else. And now he's like Joe Lycett's brought it out on like you got to pay like £10 to go see it like online.
Yes. Yeah.
And now my boyfriend like really was doing everything to try and like get a moment where like it's us two and to watch it with me.
Yeah. You should. It was so good. I highly recommend.
The thing is, he lives in Reading, and it's like 4 hours on a train to go see him. So it's like not
Oh
as easy to just
no.
go and see him.
That's so
Um,
funny. That's what it was like with me and my husband because I lived in London, he lived in Edinburgh, so we were about 4.5, 5 hours on a train. It's tricky. Yeah.
it's it's upsetting, but like you value the time you're together more.
Yes, that's exactly what we thought. Yeah. And now we live
Uh,
together in our matrimonial home and we can't stand each other. So enjoy it whilst it
yeah.
lasts, I guess.
But yeah, no, he's trying to. It'd probably be like end up being an online watch thing that we do together.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but I do. I'm gonna watch it. It's so good. It's so good.
It
Apparently,
is. It
and
really is.
I think my idols are very like the similar to you. Like I'd say like the same people. Like very good. Like, did you mention Tom Allen? Was that one of the
I
people you
did.
mentioned? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been working for years.
He has. He was on TV like when I was still at school. But it's so strange. But it's not that he's older. I think he started when he was very young.
Yeah.
And I remember watching him on E4 after Skins or something, and he like had like a little comedy. I don't know if it was a comedy special or if he was doing it as part of like another show, but I just remember watching him, and then he sort of had like a second rise more recently, and I was like, I swear he's been going for I'm sure I've seen him on TV, and he has. He's just been going for a very long time. I do have a fun story about meeting Tom Allen.
Okay, I want to hear it.
So I was doing a different show at Soho Theatre. Like they'd ask a few of us to come back and do like a late night show. And they got Tom Allen to host it, but we didn't know that until we all turned up. So we all sat in the green room waiting to go on. And then the stage manager was like, yeah, so Tom's just finishing his show and then he'll come down and then he'll start hosting. We're like, oh my God, Tom Allen's hosting. This is so exciting. And Tom Allen walked into the green room and he was so lovely to everybody, was introducing himself to everybody. I sat down in a chair. I was too nervous to stand up. And I'm always like, oh, if you're meeting somebody, you should stand up but I was too nervous. I literally couldn't stand up. And he came over and he like shook my hand. He was like, hi, I'm Tom Allen. And I said, hi, I'm Tom Allen. And then Tom Allen says to me, I don't think you are. And I went, you're right, I'm not. And he was like, do you want to tell me what your name is? And I said, I would love to, Tom. I'm just going to have to get back to you. I'm so sorry. And then eventually I got my name out because he needed to know it so that he could introduce me to the stage. But I just remember it was such an awkward thing. But then after that, he was so lovely. My husband was in the audience because it was like a big show. And he got like a selfie with Tom because Tom like walks around the audience before the show starts and then he marches onto stage. So we got a little selfie, me and my husband. Sorry, no, my husband and Tom Allen. So my husband sent that to me whilst I was in the green room. I was like, what? How have you met him before? I have. And then he comes into the green room. And then afterwards, he had like a lovely little drink in the bar with us. And he honestly had like a better conversation with my husband than he did with me. Because I was still just kind of like, that's Tom Allen. But my husband was just like shooting the breeze like nobody's business. So he's a really lovely guy.
He does like give me a vibe that he would be really nice.
He is. He really is.
I think is I completely like get what you mean with this whole story. Like I completely like it makes sense. Like I relate to it.
Yeah.
Like I met James Acaster recently and it was such like a weird experience.
Yeah. It's so strange seeing them in real life.
And it was like this is like the comedian that like made me want to do stand up and like got me where I am now, like, right in front of me.
Yep.
Has social media helped you within your career?
No. I wouldn't say so. I don't think so. I think when I started, even though it was only 6 or 7 years ago, social media was there, but I don't think it was as big a tool as it is now. Because you get lots of people who are maybe still quite new to stand up as a art form, but they do a lot of stuff online, like they make sketches and stuff. And so they sort of get certain opportunities maybe faster. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I think they're all like completely different skills. So I think I'm very comfortable doing stand-up. I'm not very comfortable recording like a little sketch or something in my house. Or, everyone has certain things that they are more naturally adept to. Like I've done a bit of writing in my time, but I find like topical writing quite hard. And some other people will find like the writing part really good, and then they'll find the performance part really difficult. And I think I think it was an interview with Sarah Millican, but and I think about this all of the time now, is she said most comedians are either writers who are trying to be better performers or performers who are trying to be better writers. And I think now there's like a third dimension to it where you've got this like social media thing. And I think like it's a slightly different beast. You have to have funny bones, but it's not the same as like writing a stand-up set or even like necessarily writing a sketch. Like you've also got to think about like, is this like relevant right now? Is it relatable? Do I think people are going to share this and all that? I don't know. I think but to answer your question, I don't think for me personally it's done much. I think opportunity that I've got has been because like I've sent them a clip of like stand up, or they've been to a show or something like that, which I think is historically, it still is how things are done. Like people won't like invest in things that they haven't seen or have never heard about. But it used to be, for example, like at the Edinburgh Fringe, you would do your show and then that would be like your calling card, and then industry would come and see you there. But I think now things are a bit different. The industry is a bit different, and I don't know. So it's social media has not been a tool for me. If anything, it seems like this big thing that I should be doing that I am currently not doing, and also I don't like the idea of having to do it. So I don't know. We'll cross that bridge and then burn it whenever I have to, I suppose.
That's so refreshing to hear though, because I've been told that like because I don't really use Twitter because it stresses me out sometimes. Like I try to
Yeah.
distance myself. I was told that if I'm not funny on Twitter, I'm never gonna make it.
No, because what's funny on Twitter is not necessarily what would be funny on stage, and vice versa. It's different. You have to write with the medium in mind. So you know, if you're really good at writing sketches, then you just take some of the lines from your sketch and do them as stand-up, that's probably not going to work. If you try and take some of your stand-up and turn it into a sketch, you have to like really rewrite it, otherwise it's not going to work. And it's the same for all the stuff that you put online, like the things that go viral on Twitter. The scope of joke that you could tell there is a lot broader, and I tend to think like I used to like when I write, try and think, okay, I'll write this how I think I would say it, like from my own voice. But then sometimes on Twitter, I don't think that works. I think other people have to be able to hear their own voice saying it as well, or it has to be something that they've heard a close friend say or something like that. So I don't think that's true at all. I think if you're trying to get good at something, then you just try and get good at it. So, and I think they're separate things. If you want to get good at stand up, then just spend time trying to get really good at stand up. And if you want to get good at Twitter, then spend all of your time tweeting and trying to write funny, pithy tweets that people enjoy. But although there are elements there that there are skills there that are common between the two, I think they are different skill sets in of themselves. So whoever said that to you is wrong.
That's actually it's so refreshing to hear that, because Twitter can be so toxic sometimes that you just don't want to look at it.
Stresses me out. Yeah, I don't like it. It's with most social media. I really enjoy TikTok at the moment, but that's because I don't really follow anybody on there. I just let the algorithm show me what it shows me. And anytime it's like, do you want to follow this person? You might know them in real life. I say no. This is my special place that nobody else knows about, so I'm going to keep it that way, please.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think so.
What is the best moment in your career?
Oh, what was I most happy about? I won an award. That was nice. I liked that. I like winning.
That is good.
Yeah, I think so. I love it. But I was also like, I was very obsessed with all the comedy competitions. And I kept saying to myself, the only way for me to like make a career out of this is if I win a competition and then people will take me seriously. I don't think that's actually true, but I just sort of made a point of entering all the ones that I could. And then eventually they let me win one. So that was cool. Maybe like, I don't know, the first time I remember when I was on the radio, the first time on BBC Radio 4, that was fun because my mother-in-law heard it, and I had a joke in there about me and David getting engaged, which actually wasn't true at the time. I was just making a joke about it, and his mother-in-law heard it and then nearly had a heart attack because she thought that she hadn't been told that we were getting engaged. And he had to be like, no, it's just a joke. Don't worry. That was fun. I'm trying to think of like a gig where I was like, oh wow, this was incredible. Maybe the first one. Oh, I don't know. There was a pretty fun one in December 2020. Me and uh the the rest of my sort of like little comedy troupe, which is called Joy Multiplication, which is me, Olga Koch, Chloe Petts, and Huge Davies. We all started comedy at the same time, and we started a night way back in the day called Joy Multiplication. And so we did that for a while. And then we stopped doing it because we all went off and did our own things. And then when the pandemic happened, we brought back the gig and we got to do it at the Pleasance in London. And I don't know, that has a soft spot in my heart just because it was like our little show with my friends, and we had like a lovely audience. And for a lot of people it was like I remember there were supposed to be other shows happening that week in London. They all got cancelled because the circuit breaker lockdown happened.
Okay.
So but it was just nice because it was like one of the first gigs that I got to do back on stage again, and I was like, oh, this is nice. This is a nice experience. So that one has a soft spot. And it's so, but that's funny because like there was one gig I did in the Leicester Comedy Festival, which was like 2,000 people. And I think some people would go like, oh, performing to like such a big crowd, that must be a highlight. And I was like, it is, but also like, I don't know. There's more sentimental value to the ones that like you put on with friends or about something that you like, your own little project that you care about and you hope other people enjoy as well. So yeah, those things, I suppose. Oh, I guess I was on TV a couple of times. That was fun.
Fair enough. That's really good comedians. Like,
yeah. We
that's
all
a
started
really
at Soho
really good
Theatre at the
lineup.
same time.
That's a really good lineup.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we thought so.
That's really cool. I didn't know about that. It's really, really cool.
We're
Um,
doing more shows next year, or at least we plan to. So we're trying to like get back into owning. Well, I don't know how you say it. Like putting on our own shows again.
yeah. I will
Yeah.
definitely try and go see one of those because it does sound so interesting and so fun.
Oh, please do. If you see them, let me know.
What is the worst moment in your career?
Uh, just the one worst moment.
You can give many if you want.
I think any time where I've had doubts about whether I could do it longer term, and they happen all of the time. But I think
Yeah.
maybe like the first couple of times it hits the hardest. I mean, like me and Huge did our first Edinburgh run together, like a split bill, and it was a show at midnight, and we always got like weird audiences. And there was one night in particular where like people were like drugged out of their mind. And this was when I was doing stuff on stage where I needed an audience member to come up on stage, and they would just like absolutely ruin stuff. They would be so off their face that they would just say to everybody, like, I don't find you funny. Can the other guy come back on, please? That was just a bit soul destroying. I think they actually might all be to do with the Fringe now that I think about it.
Oh my god.
Because you just put like so much, you put a lot onto one show, and I think it takes a few runs before you realize that opportunities can happen anywhere. But it's just that the Edinburgh Fringe, we go like, oh, anyone who's anyone has to perform there, and that's like a big deal. It can and it can't be. I don't think it's necessarily the case as much anymore. But yeah, anytime where it's been, I guess I've wanted something to go well and it maybe hasn't, that would be like a low point. Or like there's lots of times where like you're in the middle of discussing like a deal, or like you're hoping that an opportunity will go your way, and then you'll hear that it won't. And it's just unfortunate that like rejection is like a big part of doing this full time. So it happens a lot. And so the first couple of times hit the hardest, and then after a while, then it's like, okay, I can, I'll be disappointed about this for a little bit, and then I'll get back on it. So yeah, any time where it's felt like the future, you can't quite see it. Anytime that gets a bit obscured.
How do you normally write your stand-up?
I do the classic thing of having like something to take notes with me at any time. And I sort of just let the ideas come to me as and when.
Yep.
And I tend to find that if I need to write stuff, then my brain just sort of tries to get more ideas faster. So if I've got like a deadline or something, then it will do it that way. But like I am just kind of like every joke I have was just sort of like a gift from somewhere where like it just popped into my head. Anytime I've tried to write stuff, like sit down and write stuff and go like, I'm going to write about X, or today I'm going to write about Y, then it's a bit harder because it's just hard to just like jump into nothing. I tend to think of a lot of ideas when I'm either at a show or watching a show. And then, I think that's how a lot of people get their brain juices going, is to just absorb a lot of comedy and then it inspires your own ideas. But yeah, I can't sit down and write with just a pen and paper. I'm very much like I'll have notes with me, and anytime I think of something funny, I'll write it down then. And then whenever I've got a new material gig coming up, then I'll just look at like what new stuff I have to play around with. And I think a lot of the time when I think of the bit, I'll sort of know how I want to word it already. So yeah, it's just a case of trying it out on stage and seeing what sticks. I used to think I was someone who wrote on stage, but I don't think I am that person. I think I have to prepare it enough to feel comfortable doing it on a stage, and then I might edit it afterwards.
I'm like pretty much the same. I remember the first time I ever wrote stand up, I didn't know what I was doing like at all. I did not know how to write stand up.
Yeah, nobody does.
And I remember getting a Word document on my computer, having no original ideas, getting a Word document on my computer, but like not even having any notes from other stuff. And then I put Jack Whitehall stand up on, and I was like, I'm gonna use this hour and I'm gonna write loads of stand up. That is
Okay.
one of the worst things I've ever done. Let's just say that show's never been shown to anyone, and it's quite clear why. And it wasn't like, and now I've kind of had my notes app on my phone, and
Yeah.
then whenever like some ideas look like they could like link together, and then I go from there, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very
Uh,
natural process, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like the whole like sitting at my computer with stand up in the background was not great. Like,
No,
don't write stand up like that.
I can't have anything on if I have to sit and write. I can't have music, I can't have TV, I can't have comedy, I can't have the radio, I can't have anything because it's just too much of a distraction.
Fair enough. Honestly, fair enough. So I've seen quite a lot of your stand up. What is your comedy normally about?
Me.
Fair enough.
I think that's it, isn't it? We all love to talk about ourselves. I don't think I'm a topical comic. I don't think I talk about like whatever's like in the news at the time. I I I talk about being gay, but only in relation to other parts of my life, I suppose. So like what am I trying to say? I think like some people write really amazing shows that are solely about like identity. And I think mine is sort of, when I talk about it, it's more just sort of like in relation to something, to like a bigger narrative or something. So like my show this year was about my wedding, but that happens to lead me to talk about some other parts of it about being gay because I am gay. So like it's going to come up one way or another. But yeah, I think some people describe me as filthy, and I don't think I'm actually that filthy. And I don't know, just pleasant. I think the best review I had this year was somebody said when they came to see the show that it felt like they had come into my front room. It's not a euphemism. And they were just sat down having like a little drink, listening to me telling quite a fun story. Did you just get that? Okay.
I got it way after what you said. Yeah.
um yeah, so like I think I quite enjoyed that. A lot of reviews say that it seems like I would make a good chat show host, and I think that's because it feels like I treat the audience as like a friend I've gone to coffee with, and I'm catching them up on like all of the stuff that has happened to me recently. And I don't know, I quite like that vibe.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe like to have your stand up. The one that I saw, well, I've seen a lot of it, but the one that like sticks out of my brain is the Love Island one. I thought
Oh
that
yeah,
was really good. I thought that
thank
was
you.
really, really good. Okay, right. This is coming from like someone that like wants to talk about uh like sexuality and stuff on stage.
Yeah.
Did you ever find it difficult to do that? Did you ever find it difficult to be open on stage?
I don't think I ever found it difficult, even if I was going to a gig where I thought the audience might not be on my side. For the most part, though, I've sort of I think if you're willing to talk about that stuff on stage, then you also accept that like some people might just not like to hear about that stuff, or they'll assume certain things because you've mentioned certain words, and then go like, oh, okay, this is a gay comic, all right. I sort of like twiddle my thumbs until this bit's over. Um, I don't know if that happens so much these days. I think I don't know. I'm always asking myself if I ever write material that's specifically about gayness, then I have to ask myself if it's coming from the right place. I think, it's like sort of the Hannah Gadsby thing of like, am I writing a joke about being gay that is just universally funny, or am I writing a joke that people think is funny, but actually it's because it's sort of very deprecating towards gay people. Um, so uh, I don't know. I always sort of like double check my jokes and go, do I think people could interpret it that way? And I don't think they can. Um, but yeah, it's funny. I was talking about this with somebody else, but like back when I started again, only 6 or 7 years ago, I don't remember seeing that many gay or queer or trans people gigging with me. And this was back like when I was very much at like an open mic beginner level. Um now I think you see I think at that level you see more um just sort of like not straight male comics, which is good. But it's so funny that like only a matter of like 6 or 7 years ago that it wasn't quite there yet. And I would always think it was sort of like a novelty to see another gay person on any lineup that I was on. And then when I started doing club work, um, it would be less likely to see any other gay people. Um, and I think some people would talk about like having queer friends within comedy who they would never see because no club would book two queer people on at the same time. And so you'd gig for like a year and a half, and then you'd both find yourselves on like a queer gig, and be like, oh my god, I haven't seen you in ages. And Yeah, it's strange. But I've never felt bashful or like I should like when it's come to my sexuality, I've always just been quite open about it. But then I think maybe I've told myself beforehand that like I don't know what I think when you come to write material as a comic and you have a background like that, any kind of like background where you might have faced oppression or something like that, you don't realize until you start trying to write stand up how much it affected you and how much it's part of your experience. So you might not expect to start stand up and start talking about all that kind of stuff. Because I don't think when I started, I don't think in my first couple of sets I was talking about that kind of thing. But then when you write more, you're like, oh God, like it's actually impacted so many different parts of my life. So there's a part of you that just wants to, it's sort of like inescapable. You kind of like have to talk about it so then you can move on to other things that are more your interests that aren't so tied to your sexuality or your gender identity or things like that.
I'm open to anyone, but not so much on stage. Um,
Oh, right. Yes. Which is fine. That there's
yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
I'd like to be open on stage. And like people ask me how I'm so open to people. And the thing is, it was because I was outed. like in high school, people found out and like told everyone, and it became this
Right.
like massive thing. And it's kind of at this point, like there's not someone that doesn't know.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just very open because there was never that like coming out bit. I was
Yeah,
out.
that's so true. And I guess like that's a really good point because I think there's also a part of the reason why I'm comfortable talking about it on stage is because rightly or wrongly, people will just assume it anyway. And it's always that thing of like if you don't acknowledge it sort of near the start of your show, then people will just keep asking themselves like, are they, is he what is he must be, right? And it's kind of like you want people to focus on what you're saying, not random little questions that pop into your head about something. So like I think that's where it maybe comes from as well, as just like addressing it so that we can move on with the stuff that I actually want you to laugh and pay attention to.
Like I remember my first stand-up show that I did online. Um, like this was before um like I moved like was out of high school, moved to college, my first ever stand-up. Um, and this was like I wasn't out to anyone. In my stand-up show, I mentioned the fact that I'm trans, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And now I kind of regret that because it was like I have to go through the entire thing again.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I i guess so. I guess it's that classic thing of like a lot of people think that you come out once and that will be it, but actually
No, you
like
have to
you
come
end
out
up coming
so
out
many
so many times
times.
in your life, different groups of people, different contexts, different situations. um and as you learn stuff about yourself as well, things can change. And it's like, yeah, there's a really good point. I get that. But I guess I don't know, I was already comfortable with it before I started stand up, and doing stand up obviously didn't change that. I kind of look forward to going to the gigs where I thought like there might be some trouble, because then I'd be like, I don't know, I don't want to fetishize being oppressed or anything, but you do secretly go like, God, are they talking about me? Oh my God, how dare you? I hate this. This is awful. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's always been a very secondary thought of like whether people are comfortable with gay people. I think you can tell from an audience just sort of by a look in their eyes whether they're going to be on board with you as soon as like you admit it. Because I've got other gay male comics friends and
Yeah.
female comics say this happens to them a lot as well, that like as soon as they come on stage and say something, there'll be people in the audience who sort of like recoil a little bit, either like they'll sort of like go like, they'll visibly show that they're a little uncomfortable. Then there's a plethora of reasons for that. It could be homophobia, it could be sexism, they don't think women are funny, they would rather not listen to a gay man for 20 minutes or whatever. And there's you just have to kind of tell yourself your job isn't to like change all of their political beliefs. You're just there to try and make people laugh. And if they have decided that you're not funny purely because of who you are, you're not going to change that through this next 20 minutes. So just try, for the people who are there, who are happy to have a laugh with you, just focus the show on them and then just forget about the other people.
This is a second to last question. You've nearly done it. I don't even want to think about how many hours you've been here. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Um, do you have any advice for someone that wants to start comedy?
Yeah, I'm fighting back the urge. Just go to do the classic. Yeah, we're full. Don't bother. We've got all of the comedians that we need actually. Um, Somebody asked me this at a gig a couple weeks ago. Actually, they were like, "I'm thinking about doing stand up." And so I said to them, um, "You should, if you're thinking about doing it, you should probably just book a you should book two gigs in now. The first one so that you can say you did it, and you'll obviously do whatever prep you need to do. You'll write your material, get yourself ready. But the first gig is to sort of ease you in, so like you know how it feels. And then the second one is like to confirm whatever you learned about the first one. Because if the first gig goes badly, then you might go, oh, was I bad? Or was the audience bad? Or did my delivery need to change? So then you've got the second gig already booked in. so that you can try it again. And if that gig doesn't go well, then you might have to like go back to the drawing board and think, okay, do I need to keep doing this? But if the first gig goes well, you're going to want to do a second one anyway to keep the momentum going, to prove to yourself that that first gig wasn't a fluke. So that it's always like people were asking like, how do I know if I'll be good at stand-up? And I go like, you won't unless you just try it, and the audience will tell you whether you're good or not. But that's why I say book 2 gigs so that you're extra sure.
This is your last question. You've
Okay.
Who is your dream comedy partner to do a tour with?
To do a tour with? Like are we like a double act, or am I their support, or is it a two-hander, or
You answer like how you want, because either one, which is not a great answer to what you were asking, but you can support them. I've answered this question in support before, but you can do a double act with them.
I would probably say any of the icons that I said earlier, I suppose, if any of them were touring. That would be fun to support them. If I were to do like a dream tour where it's me and anybody else and we do whatever, oh God, I actually don't know, because I'm sort of the type of person who I'll just do what I'm told. So I often don't think about like what would it be like if I made all of the calls. But I definitely would very much love to do tour support for Tom Allen or Joe Lycett or Dawn French if she is planning a tour of some kind. But I think she's doing a panto right now, so I don't think they usually have a support for that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, any of those people, I suppose.
Fair enough. It's quite weird because my dream comedy partner isn't like a big name. Like isn't a big name at all.
Right.
My dream, like it's not comedy, like love to support, I think. Support's the right word. Like I do like 20 minutes and then just kind of
Yeah.
leave.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to do tour support for, do you know Jack Barry?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to do tour support for Jack Barry. Because he's the one that originally told me to do stand up, so it'd be like a full
Oh, okay.
circle
It'd be
type
like a
thing.
full circle moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, you've done it. You've done it.
I did
Yeah.
it.
That was a lot of questions. I didn't realize how many questions that was. I think we've been going for 3 hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
3 hours. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. No, I had the
We
time. It's
signed up
fine.
for this.
Mm.
Anyway, thank you for your being here for 3 hours.
No problem. Thank you for having me.